Hi, and welcome to the first in the series of Nathan Trust's HR People Services podcast. Today I'm joined by Christine Sutton, who is the head of HR at Nathan Trust. Christine is an expert people professional with a wealth of experience across multiple sectors. She has a background in organisational psychology and is a chartered fellow of the CIPD. So Christine is here today to explain to us where HR is going, what's new in HR, and what the term people services is. So Christine, I would have an old attitude to what HR means, as would a lot of people I know who just see it as, I suppose, the fundamentals of employee contracts and holiday leave and conflict in the workplace. But there's much more to it than that. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I suppose your view would, whilst those things are important, I suppose the definition and scope of people services and human resources has definitely expanded. People have seen it previously as much more of a transactional service. So, very much heavy on the administration, but I suppose what people services encompasses, well, one, I think it's a little bit more human. I think even the term human resources is a little bit clinical and transactional, and I think by calling it people services, or that seems to be what it's evolving into when you kind of see head of people now as opposed to head of HR. It emphasizes that broader focus on the traditional HR functions to really encompass more around culture, organizational effectiveness, and really that employee experience. So it really, there seems to be more of a shift towards a more holistic approach to managing people within organizations, and I think that's what is critical, and that's where the difference is for a lot of organizations who are making a shift towards a more people-centric approach, as opposed to providing an administration service that is compliant with legislation, which is also important, but really it's about focusing on delivering and enhancing people's experience in the workplace.
So what are the main issues you're seeing with companies coming to you or clients coming to you?
I think some of the biggest issues are around organizational effectiveness. I think organizations have seen a massive shift, obviously, over the last number of years. The way we work has been dramatic. So that change has been dramatic. So we've seen a continued evolution of those remote work policies, hybrid practices, hybrid models, and really just the impact of that on engagement and productivity. So there's an awful lot around that. And really, we're seeing a lot of organizations who are mandating return to work and mandating that people are returning to the office because they deem that it improves productivity, when research has shown that it doesn't really make an impact on productivity, and some recent research that came out around that. So I think organizations that have mandated, say, return to work, haven't necessarily done so successfully. I think organizations are looking at how can we be more agile in our approach to our people, in our methodologies, and utilizing technology, encompassing diversity, respecting diversity, ensuring that they have inclusive practices, and also ensuring that they are understanding what their employees actually want, whilst also, ensuring organizational effectiveness. because ultimately that's what people are in business for, to ensure organizations are successful. So a lot of those things, there's so many different elements that come into it, and we're seeing lots and lots of different needs from clients, but primarily around that, how do we make our organization effective? How do we look at it from a strategic perspective, from, you know, ensuring our people are happy, ensuring that we are providing a productive workplace for those people, and also ensuring that we have the right culture in which all of this is going to be successful and thrive.
I suppose you mentioned remote work there, you know, creating a lot of new challenges. I mean, it is a very different approach when you're dealing with a highly remote team for a client versus, you know, an in-office on-site team.
Different challenges, and I think it very much comes down to, you know, everybody is different. Some people will thrive in a remote working environment, and others will thrive in an in-office environment. And I think you have to be flexible to allow for, you know, both of those approaches. It can be difficult for people to build rapport and to build that team environment from just a remote working environment, but it is possible, and it's just about being smart about how you do it and how you engage with people online, how you can actually build a team just in a remote environment. And lots of organizations have gone completely remote, you know, removed and I suppose gotten rid of their office space, or reduced the real estate that they have. So they don't actually have enough room should everybody want to, or be mandated to come back into the office. They don't actually have the space for it. So I think organizations have had to really look at the skills that are needed in order to manage remotely, and to ensure that managers are equipped to do that, because I think we're putting a lot of requirements on managers and not necessarily giving them the skills and the resources to be able to do it properly. We're just expecting them to figure it out themselves.
Yeah, no, I've worked with a number of remote companies would have no central office, and I've seen it done really well, and I've seen it done not so well. And yeah, it definitely seems to be a bit different. Having spoken to one or two of them and asked them questions, they were saying that not having an office has its benefits too, that there's less kind of office politics. But again, it depends on the people you have on your team. So less interaction can suit a team sometimes, but yeah, I mean, it can be double-edged as well. But the company I was speaking with, I think they've done a lot of work in keeping the remote team connected with each other, and they have you know, meetups regularly. Whereas the one I saw that wasn't working very well, they seem to not really be connected very well, you know.
Yeah, people need that connectedness, and you know, how you do that is something you need to work on. So it's, you know, and I think having people in the office can be great, but what should really matter at the end of the day is the output. And that's what we should be measuring on, is what output are we getting from our people, and rather than the input, rather than people turning up and being present in the office. So that's what organizations need to understand is important, rather than, you know, bums on seats, essentially. People showing up for the sake of showing up and maybe not getting as much done as they actually would get done in a remote working environment. But also ensuring that if you have a remote working environment, that you do those things like you mentioned about, you know, the regular meetups, taking time to kind of build connections, and that, you know, the meetings that you're having online allow for a little bit of social connectedness as well, which I think is really important in organizations, to allow for that relationship building between colleagues.
So that not every call is a business call, that there's going to be some social and personal.
Yeah, to allow people time to get to know their colleagues in the same way as you would, you know, if you're grabbing coffee in the kitchen, or you know, that you're chatting about something. It's a different set of skills, and you just have to give people the time to do that, but also then that you're not in, that you make sure that people aren't back to back to back meetings all day in their calendars, because I think that's almost the downside of remote working, is that people feel that they perhaps need to justify their time, and they're filling their days with meetings, and perhaps not necessarily being as productive because they feel they have to. And you know, whereas if they're not maybe on a meeting or tapping away at their computer, that they're not doing anything, whereas they might be actually being very productive.
One problem I've seen come up with remote working, especially, you know, with the companies that might have people working remotely from a number of different countries. So there's local HR laws involved there. Now, I have seen one remote company, and they will have set up an entity in each country that they have employees, and have a local HR. That seems to be a great solution, but quite a costly solution. Is there any other way of, I suppose, having selective HR, you know, for each employee to adhere to their country of residence?
Well, I think obviously it's important. Like, I've seen lots of different approaches. I've seen centralized HR where people will ring and get support. I've seen people employ AI where they've uploaded for it to be the first port of call for a question for employees. I've seen where they do have kind of that individualized kind of business partner contact for their organization, and there is no one size fits all approach. It's about what's actually right for your company, and I think that's critical. You need to figure out what suits our company, what suits our culture, and how we approach our people services. So, you know, obviously it's great to have somebody on the ground that people can kind of connect with, but you know, if you're in a remote environment, I think just making sure that you have somebody who people can reach out to, and that is signposted for them. Where do I go for, you know, if I have a question on this, or where do I go to if I need to speak to somebody? So again, making sure your managers are skilled enough to have those initial conversations, because managers should be the first port of call for every employee. It's not all, you know, HR is usually a point of escalation for, you know, for managers. Or if managers can't answer the question, then they would ask HR or people services. So really what HR wants to be kind of looking at is more about that, that holistic and integrated approach to managing people. It's about considering, we want to be considering, well, what are the needs of our employees, and what experience do we want them to have? How do we want people to feel about working in our organization, and ensuring that is evident throughout an employee's life cycle, whether they're just starting with the company, or whether, they're maybe being promoted or progressing, or, moving across functions, etc.
I suppose another change that we're seeing over the last few years that I've noticed would be since COVID as well, that more employees are questioning, their lifestyle. And I suppose before that it was very much turn up at your desk, clock in, clock out, bums and seats, as you said earlier. But there seems to be, is it right across the board, or is it specific to a certain generation? New employees, but I think I suppose the work environment is being questioned a lot lately, and it seems to continue that that employees aren't willing to do more than's required?
I think it's a little bit reductive to kind of look at it from a generational perspective, because I think, again, everybody is different and everybody has different motivations and everybody has different needs out of their own lifestyles. So, you know, I do think that there does seem to be a little bit of stereotyping based on generations, and that different generations have, you know, different motivators. And I've seen, you know, various memes and things.
So you're seeing the workplace being challenged from all ages and demographics?
Yeah, absolutely, because, you know, we're all unique, so it's not necessarily a generational thing. I think, again, going back to what I'd said previously, organizations need to be more flexible and more agile. People are thankfully, you know, I think a little bit more willing to come forward when it comes to, or just even speak out about their own needs. And I think COVID did kind of give a lot of people that reality check as to what is important in life. And certainly there is a growing emphasis on employee well-being, mental health, and the strategies. But one of the biggest things around that is just around flexibility. It's not necessarily about having these, you know, fantastic wellness programs where organizations have free coffee, free lunch, and, you know, a yoga or something like that. Like, all those things are kind of nice to haves, but what is at the very core of that is looking at your organizational practices, looking at how your work is designed, and ensuring that you can take a flexible and agile approach when it comes to your employee needs.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to think of, when you come up with a master plan of, you know, holistic approach, it's about how you're communicating that to the employees, how you enact that every day. So I suppose the communication being a key element to you carrying out your work for a client.
Yeah,
and sorry to interrupt. That kind of has to tie in leadership as well. So you've got to get everyone on board to communicate that message. So yeah, how do you do that? I know each case is different, but how do you approach that kind of communication training, I suppose, and get people into a new way of thinking? It must be very difficult.
I suppose a lot of the organizations, thankfully, a lot of the organizations that we work with are very much, we're lucky enough that they're very forward thinking, and they really do understand that in order to get and keep top talent, they need to be a little bit more flexible. So when it comes to organizations and the companies that we work with, a lot of them, they kind of have an idea in mind, but I suppose my question always to them is why? Why do you want to do this? Why is it important to you? What problem or what issue are you trying to solve by doing this? And that's, I suppose, goes back to your point about every organization is different. So there isn't necessarily one master plan or one strategy. It is about actually trying to tailor it to your organization and what is right for your company. And that's why it's really important to understand the data and understand what's actually going on in your company at the moment, rather than looking across the street and kind of seeing what another company is doing and being, I suppose, distracted by fads, which a lot of people tend to be. So I think it's really important that we don't get caught up in those things, and we actually kind of almost take a pause to figure out what does our organization need and how do we get there. And I think being very transparent and authentic is one of the critical things for leadership when it comes to communication. It's being honest. It's just understanding the importance of, and when we are communicating, just because you've said something doesn't mean somebody has understood it. So trying to, continuously communicate and embed your practices into the organization, but also that people understand why you're doing it. So if you're implementing, a new IT system, that people understand why you're doing it, what problem you're trying to fix with this new system, and ensuring that they actually understand that. I might tell you, right, we're implementing this new system because it's going to reduce the time taken to do this task. What I should be doing is ensuring that the employee actually understands what I'm saying, rather than, right, well, I told them, so why don't they get it? Why don't they understand? Why are they not on board? Why are they not jumping up and down celebrating this? So that communication is just continual. It needs to happen regularly. It needs to be honest, because sometimes we don't have the answers. And that's certainly been the approach with the, just our models of working at the moment, the hybrid working, the remote working. Organizations have had to kind of hold their hands up and say, look, this is all new to us. We might not get it right, but we'll try this approach, and we'll look, if it's not working, we'll reassess. So I think that is really important, that organizations can actually do that, and leaders can do that, to say, I don't necessarily have all the answers. We'll try it, and if it doesn't work, we'll make a change. But at the very beginning, organizations need to understand their why. They need to understand the evidence and the data that supports the actions that they're going to take. And I think that is what's critical. Often organizations will just plow straight into something and say, oh, we should do this. And, my question, as I said, I sound like a broken record, is, but why? Explain it to me, so that I can understand it, because if I understand it, then I can help you get there. And I want to understand, I suppose, what does your organizational data say? What do the people actually want? And what does, I think a lot of people dismiss and don't necessarily look at what research is showing them. So all of those things are really important to consider.
Yeah, there's a lot going with your gut, rather than, which is important, but then actually looking at the data and justifying your decision with some logic.
Yeah, and I think that's probably an area that HR hasn't necessarily been great on, and it's something certainly that the CIPD have done amazing work on over the last while, is just really trying to kind of ensure that HR practitioners understand the importance of evidence, and they understand the importance of evidence-based practice. And I think that is where HR professionals and people professionals need to really ensure that they're moving towards, ensuring that anything that they're implementing or bringing in has a basis in evidence.
I think we're coming close to the end there. So I just wanted, one topic I wanted to discuss with you was, different personalities in companies, and psychometrics and things like that. I believe you have some experience in that.
Yes, I suppose one of the things that we ourselves, I suppose, have looked at within Nathan Trust is just about trying to understand individual differences. It's understanding those different, the different personalities, where people may be stronger, where people may need to develop, and just utilizing that to help start a conversation and help build our ability to better communicate with one another as colleagues and as an organization. So one of the things that we've done is we've obviously used it for team building internally, and helping us understand how we might better work together, understanding what's the best way to to get in contact with Christine? How does she like to kind of communicate? Will I get her on Teams? Will I get her on email? Is it better to WhatsApp her? So even just little things like that can really help you know, understand and better connect with your colleagues. But we've also used it from a recruitment perspective and looking at understanding the profile and the role that we're trying to recruit for, and using a more scientific approach to our whole recruitment process. And we do that through using a multi-method approach. And one of those is obviously utilizing psychometrics to measure around kind of personality, but also perhaps ability, depending on the role as well. So I think utilizing that in conjunction with other recruitment methods, for example, well, obviously interviews, but you know, perhaps presentations as well, and just some more job related tasks that we would encourage or get candidates to participate in. So for us, again, it's just about utilizing different practices that again are shown to have I suppose better reliability and validity when it comes to predicting people's future performance. And I think, you know, certainly the mix that we have internally in Nathan Trust has been you know, has been great. We've hired a lot of people recently, and they've brought kind of different skills and different personalities into the business. So, you know, I think again, it helps people raise their own kind of self-awareness as to where their strengths are, but also where they want to develop. And that's something that we work with people across the organization, from leaders, you know, right down to our trainees as well.
Yeah, no, I can confirm it seems to be working in Nathan Trust, thankfully. So we'll keep up that good work. Christine, thanks for answering my questions and for all the information on where HR and people services is going. I look forward to doing another podcast with you. Maybe we can go through some of the individual services and case studies.
Yeah, no, we kind of went a bit around the world there with all the different things in HR, and that kind of goes to show how, I suppose, how multifaceted it is, and how many different areas that we touch really within HR. So yeah, it'd be great to maybe do some specifics next time.
Super. I look forward to it. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thanks.